So, my name is Kurt Kruger, and I'm the chair of the Intercollegiate Athletics Committee. And we've sponsored this event with the help of Jennifer Fried and Carol Stabile and the Senate Task Force on Sexual Violence. And today we welcome Brenda Tracy as our speaker. A couple of words before Brenda comes on. Most of you probably know Brenda's story, but if you don't, Brenda's a registered nurse and a survivor and an activist. And 16 years ago, Brenda was a victim of sexual assault. She's been courageous enough to come out and speak to us about that and to speak to other university campuses about that. She's a survivor and a witness, so that is somewhat rare. Obviously, to those of you who read the news or have seen movies like The Hunting Ground, sexual assault is endemic on college campuses across the United States. And it is also, unfortunately, endemic here at the University of Oregon. Ms. Tracy is also an activist. She's worked with the Oregon legislature on several bills to make this campus and all campuses safer. So, please welcome Brenda Tracy.
Well, hi everyone. I'm Brenda Tracy, and first I wanted to start saying I'm not a professional speaker. I just literally came forward with my story in the Oregonian about 6 months ago, and so I'm very new to all of this. I don't normally really prepare anything formal. I just kind of come out and I just talk to people about what's happened to me. I talk about what I'm doing now. I talk about some of the ideas I have about how we can change things. At the end, we'll open up and have kind of a Q&A. So if anybody wants to ask me anything or we want to talk about something, that would be great. So 16 years ago in 1998, I was in my early 20s, and I was actually dating a football player who went to Oregon State University. So myself and my friends would go down there, hang out a lot, back and forth. I lived in Salem at the time. And my best friend was also dating someone down there, and so she asked me one night if I wanted to go with her to Corvallis, and of course I said yes. She was going to see the guy she was dating. He lived with another football player. Sometimes they had other guys over at the apartment. And being a girl, you don't go anywhere by yourself. So I was like, of course I'll go with you. Like, why would you go to an apartment with a bunch of guys by yourself? Of course, buddy system. So we went. And we got there and I knew the guys who lived there. One of the men had his brother in town and a friend from California, but they knew the people I knew. I didn't have any reason to feel like there was any problem. So we were there. I normally am not a drinker, like at all. I have a history of sexual assault already. So I need to feel like I'm in control of my surroundings at all times. So I was not a drinker, but I was with my friends, and they said, oh, Brenda, you can drink. Stop being a square. You can drink. It's fine. You're here with us. You're with friends. You're safe. Everything's fine. So I said, sure. All right, I'll drink. And I was given a glass of mixed drink. It was Tanqueray and orange juice. I started to drink, and we were all just hanging out. Everything was fine. My best friend and her boyfriend got up and went into a bedroom. And probably a few minutes after that, I started feeling really, really dizzy. And I didn't know at the time if I was drunk or what was happening, but I just felt really dizzy. And I sat on a love seat, and I kind of just threw my head back and kind of passed out, essentially. I had not even drinking my whole drink yet. When I came to the first time, I was laying flat on my back on the floor. And I could not move my arms or my legs. I could move my head, and that was about it. And I was trying to figure out what was happening to me. There were 4 men around me. There was a man here. There was a man here. And there were 2 towards the lower half of my body. Because I couldn't move my arms or my legs, I could only move my head. And I turned this way, and there was a man trying to force himself into my mouth. So I turned away. There's another man trying to force himself into my mouth on the other side. So I looked up. One of them was raping me. And the other man was next to him waiting his turn. And I remember they were laughing about it. And they high-fived each other. Said, "Yeah, dog." And I passed out again a little bit after that. I came in and out of consciousness over the next, I think the event probably lasted 6 to 7 hours. I was in and out of consciousness the entire time. At one point, they were pouring alcohol down my throat to force me to drink more. I think probably hoping I would pass out more instead of waking up and coming in and out of consciousness. There was an alcohol bottle used on me at one point, a flashlight. At one point, I started to get sick, and I said I was going to throw up, so one of the men dragged me into the bathroom and threw me over the counter with my head in the sink because I couldn't really stand on my own. And he continued to rape me from behind. At some point, all of it ended, and the next morning, I woke up and I was face down on the floor in the apartment. I was naked. I had a kind of like a little throw blanket from a couch just kind of laid over the top of me. And when I got up, I had like food crumbs stuck to the front of me. There was a used condom stuck to my stomach. There was a dried vomit in my hair. Some gum stuck in my hair that I had to cut out later. And I can't remember another time in my life that I felt so disgusting, vile. And I couldn't even figure out at that moment what had happened to me. I was trying to make sense of my surroundings. I was trying to make sense of why am I naked? What is happening in this apartment? What just happened to me? One of the men, when I woke up, he woke up again and approached me and asked me to have sex with him, and I said no. And he cussed at me and then left and went back to a bedroom. I went into the other bedroom and I knocked on the door and I told my friend we need to leave. I'm not sure where she was this entire time. So she came out. I got out of the apartment. I kept it together until I got outside of the apartment, and then I just started to cry and shake and feel this. I'm not even sure how to describe it, but I just felt this violent shaking and fear and confusion vibrating through my entire body. And I asked my friend, I said, "What happened?" And she said, "It's going to be okay. I think we just got in a little over our heads." And I felt this sickening feeling at that moment that she knew what happened to me. I didn't want to believe that because she's my best friend. I wanted to believe that somehow she was in the next room and had no idea what was going on. But when she said that to me, I knew that she knew. So at that point, I immediately shut down. I viewed her as an enemy immediately. And I did not speak to her pretty much the rest of the way home from Corvallis to Salem. When I got home, I was so distraught that she decided to call my mom. My mom came to my side, and I told her, like so many rape victims do, I began to blame myself. And I told my mom, I drank too much, and I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I don't know what I did. Not even contemplating the idea that I had half a glass of a mixed drink and you can't pass out and go in and out of consciousness for 8 to 10 hours off of half of a mixed drink. But I immediately blamed myself. I didn't know what to do. My mom didn't know what to do. It was a moment of pure crisis. And my mom suggested we go to the Women's Crisis Center because we were in crisis. And so we went there, and I talked to one of the advocates there, and I told her what had happened to me. And she said, you know, it sounds like you were drugged. This is a crime. This is not your fault. You should go get a rape kit in case you want to prosecute. And at first, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to report. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to do anything. I just didn't even want to be inside my body. But my mom really wanted me to go get the rape kit. And so I decided that I would go and I would do that. And on the way to the hospital, I will never forget what happened on the way to the hospital, because my mom we were in a blue minivan. She was driving and I was sitting there, and I looked at her and she was holding the wheel like this, and she was just staring straight ahead. And she was trying to be really strong, and I could tell she was trying to be really, really strong for me. And tears were rolling down her face. And I remember feeling so ashamed that I did that to her. Because I felt like what happened to me was my fault. I don't know why I automatically did that, but as victims, that's what we do. We automatically blame ourselves. And I was so hurt by the fact that my mom was so hurt. And I thought about being molested when I was 2 years old to 5 years old by a family member. I thought about the time that I was raped when I was 9. And I thought about these men high-fiving over my body. And I looked at my mom crying, and I thought, I can't do this to my family anymore. I can't be here anymore. What is the point of being here? And as I was trying to figure out a way out, it became clear to me that I needed to die. That was the only answer to get away from my life and this pain. And at the time, I had 2 boys. I had 2 young sons. I think they were about 4 and 5 years old at that time. And I started having this discussion with myself. Well, what about your kids? If you die, what about your sons? And I truly felt at that time like they would be better off without me. I thought about what I'd been through in my life, how I was ashamed of myself, how I was disgusted with myself. How would they ever be able to love me or respect me? I was so broken and I was so damaged that I felt like somehow my brokenness would break them and damage them. And I felt like they were probably better without me. So once I resolved that issue and decided that they were not a reason I needed to be here, I felt really calm. It was like this calmness just washed over my head to my feet. Like, okay, I'm going to be free. I'm going to die, and it's going to be okay. I don't have to live inside my body anymore, and I don't have to have these images in my head of people hurting me and raping me and beating me. And we continued on to the hospital, and we pulled into the hospital parking lot, and I felt good about it. I felt like, you know what, I'm going to have this rape kit. My mom's going to be happy with me. I'll do it as a last wish for her. And then I'll go home and I'll figure out a way to kill myself. And I hadn't planned out exactly how I was going to do it. I was more concerned with making sure that my kids didn't find my body. I didn't want to traumatize them by finding my body, but yet I couldn't comprehend the trauma that they would experience if they no longer had a mom, which is another part of the crazy making that victims do and the impact of this trauma. So we go into the hospital, and my sexual assault response nurse, her name is Jenny, Nurse Jenny, and we start doing the rape kit. And a rape kit is a really difficult process. I think if you've never had a rape kit, you probably can't even understand what it's like to go through a rape kit. You literally there's swabs, there's exams, there's pictures, they pluck pubic hairs, they test for diseases, you get a morning after pill, you learn about HIV, you learn about AIDS, you recount exactly what happened to you. It's horrifying. And the last thing you want to do after being raped and violated is open up your legs again for an exam. But I was resolved to do it. It was for my mom. And I was just counting down the time until I would be free. And as we were doing this rape kit, there was something about Nurse Jenny that just, I don't know, the way she looked at me, it was like she loved me. She didn't know me, but there was this compassion she had towards me that I hadn't really felt from anyone. Like, I remember thinking, like, how can she look at me like I'm not disgusting? Like, why is she looking at me like I'm beautiful, like I'm okay? And I didn't understand it at all. And I started to ask God again, like, why do I need to be here? Like, what is the point? Like, and in that moment, I just felt like, I literally felt like I heard God say, like, I want you to be a nurse. I want you to be like Jenny, and I want you to take care of your sons. And at that moment, it was a life-altering moment that I will never forget. And at that moment, I was resigned to become a nurse and take care of my kids. And Jenny didn't know that I was suicidal. She had no idea. I was a rape victim. She was helping me. But at that point, there was this shift in me during the rape kit. And I was like, all right, now we got to get through this rape kit, not so I can die, but now we got to get through the rape kit so I can get out of here and get to school and take care of my kids, because now I have a purpose for life. And I was very focused on that purpose for my life. So as she's plucking pubic hairs, I'm asking her, like, so where did you go to school for nursing? And then, she's taking pictures of injuries, and I'm asking her, like, what about financial aid? How do you do that? And then we're talking about the morning after pill and pregnancy, and I'm like, well, so how long does it take? Like, and we're just ping pong, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth through the whole entire exam. And I left there, and it's funny because I got back in the same van with my mom. At that point, I decided that because I was going to live, I was going to hold these men accountable. I was going to report to the police. So that was the next step. We finished the rape kit. We got back in the van, same van. My mom is still like this, eyes straight on the road. I'm with my daughter. I'm going to help my daughter. And I remember looking at her this time, and she wasn't crying at this point. I looked at her and I said, you know what, Mom? And she's like, looks at me, and she doesn't say anything. And I go, I'm going to be a nurse. And she looks back at me like, okay, like, we just got in with the rape kit and we're going to see the police, but okay, Brenda. And I looked back at the road and I was like, well, this is how it's going to be. We're going to do this. So we went to meet the police. And it's not that I forgot about the high fives over me, don't get me wrong, but there is something about having a purpose that does change you and help you to get through certain things in your life. And so I made the report to the police. I told them what happened to me. I wanted to press charges. I wanted to move forward. And I wanted to do the right thing. And part of the reason I wanted to do the right thing was because when I was 9 and I was raped by my babysitter's boyfriend, I didn't tell. I kept silent. I was scared of him and I didn't say anything. I didn't disclose until I was 12 years old. And when I was 12 years old, the police told me the statute of limitations was up. So there was nothing that they could do. And I suffered with that for all those years until I was in my early 20s and it happened again. So this time I made sure I got a rape kit. I made sure I reported to the police. I wanted to make sure that I saw justice this time around. The next day, the 4 men were arrested. 2 of them were Oregon State University football players. 2 of them were from out of state in California. They were all arrested. They spent the night in jail. They gave their statements to the police. They were all facing, I believe, 16 to 20 years. And everything started moving forward very quickly, very quickly. Over the next 2 weeks, the backlash ensued. My best friend, or my former best friend that was there with me, she came over when she found out that I had pressed charges and arrested her boyfriend's brother. She came to me and said, I will not support you in this. I will testify against you. So that was hard for me because I thought, wow, I'm going to have to go to court. My best friend that was there is going to testify against me and tell me that I wanted to do this, and that this was my fault. So that shook me, but not enough to drop the charges. The guy that I was dating at the time, football player, he decided that one of his friends who raped me didn't deserve to go to prison for what he did. And so he told me also he wanted nothing to do with it and that he wouldn't necessarily come out and say anything against me, but he would not be involved. So that shook me. Not enough to drop the charges yet. The story was in the news, it was on the media, it was in the papers. People started picking sides. More friends, more family started picking sides, started saying, you know, Brenda probably did something. What did she do? She must have done something. Why are her and her friend at an apartment with 5 men? So as people started choosing sides, I watched my support dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. And all I had were my parents. But I was still going to move forward. I had my sons and my parents that I felt like I could do this. It wasn't until I think we were about 2 weeks into the whole process that I got a phone call from a man who said that he knew what happened to me and what I was doing, and that he would kill myself and my 2 children if I pursued this case. And he named my children. He told me where I lived. And I was scared. But it was the second time that I was finally scared enough and trampled enough by my community and everyone around me that I gave up. And I went to the DA's office and I said, I can't do this. I want to drop the charges. At that point, I really just wanted to go to school. I wanted to keep my kids safe. And I wanted to forget that any of this happened to me. I just wanted to take it all back and just erase it and pretend like it didn't happen. So the DA at that time said, okay, we can't pursue the case without you. It's pretty much all dependent on your testimony, Brenda. It's a kind of a he said, she said case at this point. And, maybe it's kind of a good idea I don't do it because I would have to go through 4 separate trials. It takes a long time. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be an uphill battle. You're frail. We're worried about you. So I decided that they're the people that know. The DA is the one that's supposed to be prosecuting and protecting me. So, all right, let's just stop. So I did. And as I thought about what they did to me and what everyone else did to me, I was hurt. And I thought, they shouldn't get away with this. There should be some sort of accountability, something. And what about all the other women on this campus? What if they're drugging and raping other women and they're getting away with it? So I went to the university on my own volition. I went to the campus. I spoke to a sexual assault counselor. I told her what happened to me in great detail. I said to her, I don't want to go through the criminal process, but I want you to do something. I want you to make sure your students are safe on this campus. I don't want this to happen to anyone else. And we had a very long discussion. We talked about education. We talked about policies. We talked about all this reform that could happen on campus and how we could prevent this from happening again. And when we were done, I felt really good about it. I felt like I had accomplished something. I felt like I had obtained a little bit of justice for myself, because I felt like they were going to put these men on such a tight leash that if they even winked wrong, they were out. And I trusted the school. I trusted everyone in positions of power that were supposed to advocate for me and supposed to help me. Blindly trusted all of them, and so did my family. And I left the campus. I went home. I tried to forget about it. I pursued my career in education. I went to nursing school. I got my RN. I then got my bachelor's. I then got a master's. I did a good job at my job. I raised my sons as a single mom. I did it all, and I succeeded. On the outside, on the inside at home, I was a wreck. I ended up in an abusive relationship. I constantly battled with depression, suicidal ideation, wanting to kill myself, can't kill myself, I have to be here for my kids, resenting my kids because I wanted to die and I couldn't because they were here. Feeling like I was broken, feeling like I was damaged, feeling like nobody can ever know what happened to me, or they'll never speak to me. I'll never have a man in my life. I'll never be married. I hated myself. I had nightmares, a raging case of PTSD. I couldn't have people behind me. I couldn't smell alcohol. It would make me vomit. Couldn't be in the dark. My family used to hate that I had to turn on a light to every single room in the house. And I would literally turn off a light and run to the other side to where more light was because I couldn't be in the dark. I couldn't. It's debilitating, but I kept it secret. I kept it hidden. That was something that other people didn't get to see in me because I needed to project that I was okay. I was Brenda Tracy, nurse, single mom, doing it all. And I hid from this monster of my rape for 16 years. And then there came a point about 6 months ago that I couldn't hide from that monster anymore. I think when you bury things alive, they always come screaming back from the grave at some point. You think you can forget things. You think time heals all wounds. Because that's what people say, right? Time heals all wounds. Eventually you'll get over it. But you don't. And when I was done getting all my degrees, my kids are grown, and then I was just with myself and my rape. And I thought, what am I going to do now? How am I going to survive this next part of my life? So I started therapy, and I talked about everything but my rape because I just decided that wasn't affecting me. My issues were from being a single mom and being on welfare and my ex-husband hitting me. So we talked about that stuff. And then eventually we started talking about the rape. And I remember telling my counselor, I feel really bad that I didn't prosecute. I feel really awful that I wasn't strong enough to do it. And I'd always hated myself for not being strong enough. And I said, but I did all this stuff on campus and it was really great. She said, well, what exactly did they do on campus? And I tried to explain. I was like, well, I don't really know exactly because I left there and I just assumed, they did all this stuff. I don't know. People are safe because of me. And she said, well, maybe we should find out what happened. And I said, sure, let's do that. We're doing therapy. Let's get better. Let's do something. And at that point, I did know that Mike Riley, the coach, had given them a 1-game suspension, which I thought, when I first read that in the paper, I thought, that's not what we agreed to. But then I thought, well, that's the football coach. Maybe he doesn't know what happened to me. Maybe he's mistaken. And the other administration must not have any control over him, but I'm sure they're on, academic probation. I'm sure they were suspended. I'm sure other stuff is happening. So I just kind of was mad, but I was like, other stuff happened. The sexual assault counselor told me other things were happening. So I tried to kind of balance my anger and everything else. But in a counseling session about 6-7 months ago, I very naively thought, well, I'll just call the school and I'll ask them what happened, right? So I called the conduct office and I was like, hey, my name is Brenda Tracy and some of your football students raped me in 1998 and I was just wondering what happened to them. What did you do to them? And the lady paused for a while. And she goes, well, I think I should just take your name and we'll get back to you. And I was like, okay. Not thinking anything of it. A week later, nobody called me back, and I very naively again thought, oh, well, I'll just call again. So I called and I left a message, hey, it's Brenda Tracy. I was raped there, and I want to know what happened. And then I get another phone call back, finally. And the woman says, Brenda, why do you want this information? What are you planning to do with it? And I said, well, I'm planning to be in therapy. This is really traumatic for me, and I just want to, I want to know my story. I want to claim my story so I can heal and get better. And she said, well, do you want to litigate? And I went, what? Litigate? I'm just in therapy. I want to get better. What are we talking about? Well, there's this thing called FERPA, and, there's this confidentiality stuff, and there's student records, and we're probably going to have to contact the men to see if it's okay for you to find out what happened to them. And I went, what? Why? I'm the victim. How come I can't have this information? And why do we have to contact them? I don't want them contacted. So I got kind of nowhere with that conversation and contacted a lawyer and asked what my rights were. And again, I was kind of told, well, it's been a long time ago. Maybe you should just work with the school. I'm sure they'll help you. I'm sure they mean well. And that didn't sit well with me. So I went around and around in circles trying to get some information from the school and continued to feel re-victimized by just the process of even trying to request information about what happened to me. So at that point, I got on Google and I thought, well, I'll just contact Mike Riley. I'll just talk to him. But then it was like, well, how do I talk to Mike Riley? Do you just walk in his office and say, hey, do you remember me? Your players raped me. Or do I write him a letter? Or how does that work? So I started Googling him, figuring out what kind of person he was. I decided I was going to write him a letter. And I found a article that Coach Riley had suspended a player a couple years before for domestic violence. He beat up his girlfriend. He was convicted, the whole thing, and gave him a 1-game suspension. And that, really upset me. So I wrote this reporter just angry. Mike Riley did this to me too. I was gang raped, 1-game suspension, nobody wants to talk to me, I'm super pissed off, and I'm angry, and nobody will listen to me. Thanks for letting me vent, Brenda. He contacts me back and says, do you want to talk? And I was like, yeah, of course I want to talk. Nobody will listen to me. I want somebody to listen to me. I want to talk. Somebody, please. So we set up a time to meet, and then I thought, oh, great. I wonder who I just, told I would meet and talk about my most personal issues. So I Googled the name, and it's John Canzano. And We sat down. I gave him the 38-page police report that I had held on to for 16 years. And we talked about what happened to me, and I unloaded my story on him. I hadn't talked about it for 16 years. And he said, "You have a story. Do you want to tell it?" And I said, "Yeah, I do, actually. And I'd actually like to put my name and my face on it because I'm so miserable right now that nothing that can happen to me by coming forward can be worse than what I'm going through now." I don't know if you know what it's like to want so badly to die, but you can't. To not want to be in your body. There's so many days I wish that I could have just peeled off all my skin so that I couldn't feel them on me. But obviously you can't do that. Every morning I woke up, there I was. Every night I went to bed, there I was. I couldn't get away from myself. So I said, yeah, let's do it. Let's do this story. So that story came out November 17th, just about 180 days ago. And I was scared. Don't get me wrong. I was pretty scared to tell my story in the public. I was fearful that I was going to be treated the way I was before. I was afraid I was going to be called a liar. I was afraid I was going to be told, get over it. Why are you still crying about it now? It happened 16 years ago. Really? That's such a long time ago. Nothing's like that anymore. It was a he said, she said case, blah, 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 whatever. But the story came out, and John Canzano continued to dig, and what he found was heartbreaking for me. In December, he investigated Oregon State, and, I thought I was so insignificant at that time. I didn't even know people knew about me. But apparently the school did know about me. People came forward and they talked, and they said, yeah, we totally remember Brenda. The counselor had gone to the police station and got my police report. She gave it to the conduct office at the school. They read the entire report. Every single man in that report admitted to wrongdoing. They admitted to either raping me, sodomizing me, or touching me in some inappropriate manner. Every single one of them confessed. The school knew that they confessed. The DA knew. Everyone knew, but me. I was told it was a he said, she said case. And one of the biggest things I want to talk to you about today about that is that Jennifer Fried talks about institutional betrayal. And when I started going through this process and figuring out all these things that were done to me, it was a new trauma for me. I mean, I knew that there was a 1-game suspension, but I didn't know the school knew what they did. I didn't realize that the men truly confessed. How do you walk into a police station and confess to gang raping someone and walk out? Not only that, but then I was told that the school gave them 25 hours community service for what they did to me and a 1-game football suspension. That's it. That's all that happened on campus. That's it. None of the stuff we talked about happened. Nobody was protected. Nobody was saved. Nothing changed from that conversation I had with that counselor. And the betrayal, it's unbelievable. And I can't emphasize enough to you, there's one thing when someone impulsively does something and maybe they do the wrong thing and you think, well, they're human, things happen, maybe we can figure that out. But when you have a system of people who intentionally bury information, ignore it, intentionally conspire against another person like they did with me, that's a whole nother level. That's not a mistake. That's intentional, and that's hurtful. And that's traumatizing. Not only was I raped, but then all these people conspired against me because they decided that money and reputation and football was more important than my life. And that's disgusting. And we should be ashamed that these things even happen. And I feel really honored to be here on this campus for a couple reasons. Number one, because institutional betrayal has been going on this campus. There have been some grave mistakes and things that have happened. And I don't even know if you call them mistakes. I don't know what to call it. But some bad things have happened on this campus. And you have this amazing woman, Jennifer Fried, who talks about institutional betrayal, has coined the phrase. For me, it's been life-altering for me to even have that label, because it's so big to me, the betrayal, but to have like a label on it and to know what it is helps me wrap my brain around it, helps me understand what it is that I'm going through, helps me understand my trauma, and it gives me something that I can work on, something that I can grasp. Because what happens is when a system betrays you in that way, it makes you question your worth. It makes you question, do I matter? Is there any protection for me? Does anyone care? Am I not important? Does it matter if I'm alive? Like, would it just be okay if I was dead and nobody would care? Like, is football really that important? Is reputation really that important that we're willing to put lives at risk? Because that's what it is. We're putting people's lives at risk. People die over this. I don't know what the stats are, but institutional betrayal can kill people. It's not just a term, it's not just a phrase, it's not just a thing. People die. And I'm not even sure how I'm alive right now, to tell you the truth, after everything I've been through. I know in part because I'm supposed to be here talking to you about this, because I'm supposed to be putting a face to the term institutional betrayal. I know what it feels like. I know how it's affected my life. I know how it's going to affect other women's lives. And I need people to take it seriously. I need people to stop worrying about money and reputation and other stupid things, because people's lives matter. They matter. I have 2 sons. We all have family members. How can we just treat people like garbage and then just move on like nothing happened and like it's okay? It's not okay. And I want to change it, and I'm working on changing those things. There's so much to work on. I'm not even sure. It's kind of like I think about, okay, well, where do we start? There's so much to work on, but one thing is, as a college campus, the first thing we need to do is stop betraying our students. We need to protect our students at all costs. Our students come here because they think they're safe. Parents send them here because they think they're safe. College is supposed to be an experience where you grow, where you learn things, you get educated, you start a life. We shouldn't be sending our sons and daughters here and literally ruining their lives, literally putting them in situations where they're going to suffer from PTSD and depression for the rest of their lives. They're going to leave college and start drinking and become alcoholics and drug addicted, and men and women are going to self-destruct. That's not what college is about. That's not what the dream is. That's not what we're here for. That's not what people come here to teach. They come here to teach to enlighten people and help people. But we're damaging our students. And kind of for nothing. The idea that my story happened 16 years ago and can still happen today angers me. It's really depressing, and we should really kind of be ashamed of that today my story could happen. That a few people could just make bad decisions and do the wrong thing, and they could affect a life. Because not everybody does what I do. Not every victim. If every victim was turning around and doing something and changing laws, the world would be a way different place. But we're not reporting. We're not talking about it. We're not. There's only really a few of us that are really doing what I'm doing. And I'm hoping to bring more in. But part of that has to do with our community. If we don't support victims and we don't support survivors, they're not going to come forward. We have to change the mindset. And changing this idea of institutional betrayal, I don't think is really that difficult. I think you put the welfare of people first. You do what's in their best interest. We change the conversation from reporting rape and dealing with it as being punitive to being proactive and creating a better space. We stop worrying about what things are going to look like. Let's take the stance of, yeah, we had a rape on our campus, and look what we did about it. And we're gonna set the precedent for everyone else. This is how you deal with things. This is how you protect students. This is how you save people. And if we lose some money over it, oh well, we're gonna do the right thing, because there's never a wrong time to do the right thing, ever. Ever, ever. And we can do that very easily. We just have to change the conversation. We have to change the perspective. We have to be transparent. We have to be honest. We have to communicate. We have to take great minds like Jennifer Fried and use her. Listen to her. Listen to victims. Listen to advocates. Change the conversation. Become transparent. That's the only way we're going to shift, is if we're transparent about things. And in the meantime, we can enact legislation. Yesterday, I testified before the Senate committee for HB 3476, which addresses confidentiality and reporting. The bill basically says that there will be designated people on campus where a victim can come forward, report rape. That person is not a mandatory reporter. They don't have to escalate an investigation. The survivor can then decide what they want to do. They can take back some of their control, their power. That person is bound by confidentiality. That information cannot be used against that victim. They can feel safe. They can have some of their power back. It passed the committee. It goes to the Senate floor next week. I expect it to pass. So this is going to help people to make the right decision, because it's going to make you make the right decision, which I don't think is a bad thing. I don't. I see the, as I've been going through this process, I see that there's a dynamic sometimes on campus where we have people on campus who start to speak up and advocate, and sometimes they're labeled as troublemakers or going against the grain or whatever. I've spoke with people who have lost their jobs. If you're not getting in line the way we need you to, maybe you're out, you're making us look bad. We don't want to be the rape campus. So I get that. I get that if your job is to make the school look great and raise money, then maybe it's going to be hard to be like, oh, we had a gang rape here. You're going to worry about what people are going to say, what they're going to do. But we have, if we shift the culture so that people are not scared of being the troublemaker, being labeled, losing their job, if we empower them to make the right decisions, if we enact legislation that requires them to do the right thing, we can shift all of this together. But it takes a concerted effort on all of our parts. I can talk to you until the cows come home, but if people are not going to start doing things, then nothing's going to happen. I expect that bill to go through. I think that's going to help survivors. It's going to give them a safe place to go. I think that we will see reporting numbers go up once that the students feel safe. The other bill we're working on is SB 759. That's a notification. So if at the beginning of the year during orientation, we want to require universities to give out basically just kind of a piece of paper that says, these are what your rights are if you're a victim on campus. These are the civil remedies. These are what happens with the police. This is what happens on campus. We want people to know their rights. Other people decided what my rights were in 1998, and they made bad choices. They didn't inform me what my rights were. I couldn't advocate for myself. My family couldn't advocate for myself, or for me, sorry. That piece of paper would have changed everything in my life. It would have completely changed everything for me. If I had had some sort of support, I wouldn't have gone through what I've gone through the last 16 years. Let's empower our students. Let's empower our faculty. Let's empower our community to know what the options are. Let's believe them. Let's talk to them. Let's deal with them. Let's look at this differently. Let's look at reporting as a good thing. Let's look at dealing with it as a good thing. That's the only way we're going to break through the barrier that we're at right now and shift and change things. I will continue to work on legislation to change things on campus. I encourage open communication amongst all of us. I'm not here to bash you in any way. I hope that you all understand that. I don't hate men. I don't hate athletics. I don't hate college. I don't hate any of it. I just want things to change. I just want all of us to get together, educate each other. Let's have better response systems. Let's have better prevention systems. Let's protect the students. Let's do the right thing all the time. Let's get our priorities straight. Let's understand that lives matter. Like, all of us matter. And I just want to be the facilitator of it. I just want to have the discussion. I want to put a face and a name to what's happening on this campus. You know, I think often about the girl here who sued and then was countersued, and the report process, and I don't know every detail of it. I don't. I'm not going to say that I do. I don't know if it was a case you could prosecute or not. What I know is that she was betrayed, and I know that that damage is going to run deep for her, and I empathize, and I feel bad for her, and I feel bad for her, and I ache for her every time I see an article about it and how it's national news, and people are bickering back and forth about who did what and how, and I think about her, and I wonder how she's doing. She's a real person. I wonder how her family's doing. I wonder how you would feel if that was your son or daughter or your friend. Because to me, the details of the exact event are not what we should be focusing on and trying to discredit it. It's what was her experience coming forward on this campus to report what happened to her. What was her experience when she reached out for help? What was that experience like for her, and how is that going to affect her for the rest of her life? I want you to humanize the issue. I'm a real person and I matter. She's a real person and she matters. All of you matter. And I hope that you'll think about that when we start reading the news articles and who's doing what and legislation, and we're all caught up in our day. When you think about the real people that suffer here. We should probably just go to Q&A because I'm kind of emotional and I feel like I kind of talked enough at this point. So I would really like it if you guys wanted to talk about something, or if there's something I didn't touch on, or, I mean, I'm really happy to be here right now, and I'm so glad that you're all here, and I'm glad that we're having this discussion, and I hope that it was not my intention to offend anyone or anything. I just want us to make sure that we're talking about this stuff. So, anybody?
I thought Ed Ray, the president
Yeah.
of OSU, sent you, really
The apology?
good apology, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's contrasted with the U of O suing,
Yeah.
and that is just boggles my mind.
Yeah, I have to say that I'm boggled by a few of the things that happen here too. I'm just kind of like, what? It's kind of hard to wrap your brain around. Yeah, Oregon State has they've done pretty good. I wouldn't say it's been perfect, But I think that they're definitely making an effort to embrace me. I've been on the campus several times. I talked to Ed Ray off and on frequently. He's helped write a letter to the legislators to support what I'm doing. I was at Take Back the Night. We talk about what they've done wrong in a very candid way. And I feel like he's trying to take responsibility. It wasn't his, administration that did this. But you're right. It's a very, very stark contrast between what's going on there and what's going on here. And definitely some work to do. And I hope that other people will kind of look at that and think about that idea. I hope that the new president coming in is kind of aware of all of these issues, including how Oregon State has been dealing with me. Because for me, I can't do anything about what they did back then. I can't go back and charge the men again and say, hey, you got away with it because the statute of limitations is up. I can't sue anybody because I have no grounds to sue anybody. I wasn't a student. Title IX doesn't protect me. I have no recourse. I get a sorry. That's what people say. They say, well, we're sorry. We're sorry we did that to you. And that's it. So there's nothing I can do about what they did. But the way that they're treating me now is helping me to heal. Because it's kind of like, what do you do with something that it's that traumatic? How do you heal from that? How do you move on? How do you change the course of your life and how you feel about yourself? Well, I've decided to politicize my pain. I'm helping other people. Ed Ray and OSU embracing me, allowing me to come onto their campus, allowing me to walk around the campus and not feel like that is the worst place in the world, me being able to take back control of that incident on their campus, and them supporting me is helping my healing process. And that's really, really important because that's how you heal institutional betrayal, is for the institution to come back and help that healing process. And that's crucial. Otherwise, that's a wound that just sits there.
Did they ever say anything about why they confessed?
The men? Why they confessed? I think they were just young and dumb. I think they were young and dumb. No, they kind of said what they did, and then they kind of just implicated the other one. One of the men said, well, I had sex with her, but I didn't rape her. The other guys raped her, but I didn't. When I was having sex with her, it was consensual, but the other guys raped her.
What possessed him to walk in?
Oh, they were arrested.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they were provoked. They were asked.
They were arrested and interrogated.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I didn't know which came first, the chicken or the egg.
Oh, no, they were arrested, and during their interrogations, they all had cross-pollinating confessions and implicated each other in what they did. Also, my testimony corroborated all of the evidence that was there, the condoms, the bottle, the flashlight, white tank tops, everything I said corroborated all the evidence that was there that was gathered. That's something I didn't talk about either, is that the police destroyed my evidence after 2 years, long before the 6-year statute of limitations was up. The school, the police, the DA pretty much all conspired to bury my case and make it go away forever. And I have no legal recourse. So the DA just got to decide that we're not pursuing this case. We have confessions, we have evidence, we have everything we need, but we're not going to do it because it's going to make the school look bad.
Why no legal? Because you have no proof that they destroyed it? I mean,
Oh, they admitted they destroyed it. Yeah, they admitted that they destroyed it. The DA, before the DA left office, I think the next year after it happened to me, they had the confessions on tape, audio tape. And she said, you need to keep this so if Brenda ever comes back, she can convict them. And they chose to destroy it anyways. Yeah, I don't understand either. It's actually really incredulous. It's almost as if those people that did it, if they hadn't confessed to doing it in the article, I wouldn't believe it myself. I would think that's like a movie. That doesn't really happen. People don't really do that. But they've all confessed to doing it. And that's why I know. And that's how I know what happened.
Do you know if Oregon State has revised its policies for how they handle university investigations and discipline of their students since this?
Yeah, they have a lot of stuff going on. I would have to refer you to someone on campus to give you all the exact details. But they, on their own, they have said, it's always confidential, it's always private. We don't release information. They have a bunch of different response programs going into place. They have a resource center that's going up this summer. On their own, they've done a lot of that, which I think is great. But I think that in the university system, I think we need laws. I think we need laws that cover every university. Because the problem is you may have one university that says, you know what, we're gonna provide confidentiality, even though FERPA says we don't have to. But then there's another school that's like, well, maybe this time we won't. Maybe this time it's the star football player. Maybe we'll just not do it this time. But if we have a law that holds everyone accountable and everybody has to follow the law, then I think that is better. I mean, I appreciate colleges going forward and being proactive and doing things, but I really think we need legislation. It only takes one person to really kind of screw things up, really, unfortunately. Yeah, but OSU is doing a lot. They're doing a lot, and they've involved me. I'm going there in the fall to talk to the athletic groups. I'm going there to talk to the fraternities. I'd like to come back here in the fall. If you'd have me speak to your men. That's kind of my focus right now, is speaking to men. 98% of all rape is carried out by men. So I think that it'd be good to focus on men and get them involved. I have 2 sons. I've been a single mom with them their entire life. I've never gotten married or anything. And most men don't rape. A lot of the rape that's going on campus is men that are repeating. They're serial offenders. They have, 6 to 8 victims from one person. I don't like the idea that we pretend like, oh, well, men can't control themselves. If a girl's drunk, they're going to rape them. I mean, that's not true. There's a lot of good men out there that are not doing that, and I think we need to stop making that excuse. I think that if we get men involved, empower them to hold each other accountable, have the conversation, get involved, I think we can shift things that are happening on campus. There's obviously going to be predators. We're not necessarily going to re-educate them. We're not ever going to get rid of rape. That's just not a reasonable expectation to completely eradicate it. But we can definitely do better than 1 in 5. Definitely do better than 1 in 5, for sure.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Tracy? Please.
I'm the president of the University Senate, and in my own work as a scholar and a creative artist, I'm a composer and a writer and filmmaker. I work with first-person witness and have worked with issues such as the Holocaust, the bombing of Nagasaki, violence in the cities. I did a project with the city of Baton Rouge through the Interfaith Federation of Greater Baton Rouge, and collected about 400 pages of first-person witness testimony, some of which was related to what you've told us today. But I have to say, in all of that work over more than 20 years, I've never heard from a person with such courage.
Oh, thank you.
What you've shared with us today is the kind of testimony of a first-person witness that changes the world. Because we can connect to something that brings us together to really affect the kind of action that you're asking us to stand up for. And I think we really have to do it. I'd like to ask all of those that are on the IAC, that's our Intercollegiate Athletics Committee, to please consider so seriously, more than that, to commit today, if you can, to involving Brenda Tracy in what we do going forward.
Thank you so much.
As part of our educational program, there's nothing more powerful than your first-person witness.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That means a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those comments keep me motivated because it's not easy for me to be here and talk about this stuff. But I've just decided that if I'm going to help anybody do anything, I just have to be brutally honest about everything and just not care what anybody thinks about me anymore. I can't. I know because of experience that lives depend on it. And I take it really seriously, but it's extremely draining to live in my rape like every day and rehash it and talk about it. But this type of event, like having all of you here, people that make decisions and people that do things here on campus, that really, really motivates me. It helps to heal me. It just restores my faith in humanity. And I'm so glad that you're all here. The fact that you're here means you want something to change. It means that you're willing to do something more and something different. And I hope that you'll all take note of who's here and hold each other accountable, because it only takes this many people to change an entire campus. One person can do a lot. So I'm really honored to be here with you guys.
It's like a nice segue to what I was going to ask you. From my perception, the reality at UO is that there are tons of people who are fighting to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And some of them are in this room. And who's not here is the interim president. I don't see the provost. I don't see the dean of students who was publicly declared the graduates at a rally. And so we're talking about action and movement, but the truth is that people who are doing these things are stonewalled,
right,
are retaliated against, some are fired.
Right.
And so it's hard for me not to feel hopeless. I'm a baby graduate student.
Yeah.
Emailing provost, emails, please clarify. I get no response. And I get lied to. And there are people who have much more power than I do who are experiencing things much worse because they're
right.
fighting much more actively. And so I'm wondering if you can speak about how do we actually make change with the people who have the political power, the status, the money, who benefit, who make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and privilege that over the lives that you're speaking of.
Oh, yeah.
I've always felt that if sexual violence is such a problem on college campuses, UO is the place to fix it because you have Jennifer Fry, you have John Davies, you have
absolutely.
These people. Like, this is the place to do it, and this is the place that continues to make so many.
You guys have some brilliant minds here, and I'm just like boggled at the idea that these people are not being used effectively and listened to. And that's part of the reason I'm here today, is to give their work a face and a name and a story, because I'm hoping that somehow people will connect. Like you said, that somehow people will connect to what's happening with a real person. They can see me, like, I'm at the grocery store with you. I am behind you getting gas. Like, I'm a real, regular person. And to answer your question specifically, the first thing I would say is please don't give up. Please don't give up. Number 2, you are making some progress, because that countersuit that was filed was dropped. And I was really happy about that. And that was the outcry of the community, the students, faculty. That pressure was what dropped that lawsuit. And I thought that was amazing, because without that outcry, it would have continued on. So what you're doing is working. It's not necessarily where we want it to be, but we're working on it. The other thing is law. That's where we got to go. We have to go to the law. We have amazing legislators in the House and the Senate in Salem right now who care about this issue, who want this issue to be changed, who want to hold university presidents accountable. They do not like what's going on here down at University of Oregon. They do not like what's going on in the nation, period. And that's where we got to get them, the law. We have to enact legislation, and we have to hold people accountable. So when we enact legislation, we then have to hold you accountable. Like, if you break the law, that's it. So because you didn't make the right choice about confidentiality, now we're going to put a law on you, and now you're going to have to do it, you know? And that's really, I think that's going to be our answer. We just have to enact legislation, and we have to make people do the right thing until they choose to do the right thing. But don't give up. Please don't give up. Keep emailing. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to keep rallying. I'm at the Capitol almost every day. Everybody knows who I am. I testify constantly to pass this legislation. I'm already working on legislation for next year. I plan to do this for the rest of my life. We'll get there.
There's so many things I want to say to you. And I'm going to run through a bunch of things.
Okay.
First of all, the countersuit was dropped, but the language from it was kept and moved into another part of the same answer. The University of Oregon continues to make the same statements that it made in the countersuit claim. And they moved it to a different section of the lawsuit, and they now call it unclean hands. This was raised yesterday in the University Senate by Professor Fried, by me. The president basically had no answer to it. Secondly, you should understand that there are 2 graduate students sitting here who are Jennifer Fried's graduate students.
Okay.
Carly in particular works on
So nice to meet you.
Trail, and Jen, they're both our graduate students. I've just got a list of things. There's inadequate activism on this campus. We can almost look around the room, and except for maybe Carol Stabile, and see the only people who are trying to do anything about this. And I'm talking about 6 or 7 people. There's inadequate activism at the undergraduate level, although there are some wonderful people. But, people are busy with a lot of things. There's inadequate activism and faculty. You need to talk. We need to have you talk to our incoming president.
I would love to.
Small room.
Yeah, I actually tried to find him yesterday, but at the Capitol.
People can just talk turkey and not feel that they have to keep up a face or anything like that.
Yeah.
You need to be in the room with Scott Coltrane, our returning provost, and with our interim president. And then it needs to segue into understanding this isn't about Oregon State.
Right.
You're just the most brave person to talk about this. So I want to say some things, if I may, to other people here so that they understand some of what you alluded to.
Okay.
But there's more of a story, and you've heard part of it. The therapist for the young woman that you've described here, who was assaulted by the basketball players, was ordered not to help the girl's attorney, not to give information that the girl's attorney wanted to be done. She was ordered not to talk to any attorney of her own choosing. She was ordered by the head of the counseling center not to contact an attorney, not to have an attorney of her own, the therapist. She had her private files invaded and taken the files of the therapist and of the girl and sent over to the general counsel's office by the director of the counseling center. Furthermore, the director ordered the therapist the same day that she ordered that the files be collected, but the therapist not be told of it, so that the girl and the therapist would not know the files were being taken out of the counseling center. And on that same day, she was again told in writing not to ever contact an outside lawyer, and that she could not, on the other hand, contact the general counsel's office. So she had to sit there and be in this isolated situation without any legal contact or recourse. The director's executive assistant was fired on March 20th for being a whistleblower about these and other events. The therapist continues under pressure for speaking out, and sometimes the pressure is internal. I mean, it's not, when I talk about external pressure. And furthermore, the counseling center changed its confidentiality policy sometime between March 5th and March 19th to eliminate the protections that had existed, but instead to be consistent with the giving away of files. And in a letter that 10 of us professors sent to the university president on February 20th, we identified the violations of the policy, and every one of those policy elements that were violated were removed in the new policy so that there would no longer be violations of that policy. I just think it's important that people understand this, and that if, by my saying things to other people in this room, if anybody can be motivated, one person, to become an additional activist on this,
Absolutely.
one faculty member, one student, one graduate student, somebody to dig into this, because this stuff is happening here, and you're the bravest voice, for this from Oregon State, but the things are happening here.
Absolutely. They're happening everywhere. Absolutely. And I would love to speak to anyone you want to put me in front of. And I have close relationships with media, senators, legislators. I will do whatever I can to try to help change things on this campus, because it's appalling. There's no words. Sorry, go ahead.
So thank you so much for coming and talking to us. And as others have said, your courage is just, it's hard to think of anybody who's expressed such bravery.
Thank you. I was really nervous to speak in front of you.
I want to just add a couple points to the truth-telling.
Please do.
We just heard, because I think it really speaks to the institutional betrayal. But before I do that, I just want to say that when you said that people's lives are at stake, you know that from your experience and talking to other people. In research that Carly Smith and I and others in my lab have done, we know this in a systematic social science way too.
Yeah.
This is a very real, severe kind of harm, institutional betrayal to people. So I just want to confirm that. But following up on the details of what were just said, right now in our university we have a committee that's been formed to address confidentiality that includes on it members of the counseling center that were just referred to and who are under ethics investigation.
Yeah.
We know that because it's been in the press.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so when the university decides to appoint people to a position like that, despite being under ethics investigation, it just strikes me as an intense disregard for the appearance of rightness and probably for rightness. And it's really difficult to deal with this when it goes to the highest level. We also just had a newspaper article come out where the university president was quoted as saying that he didn't know anything in detail about these ethics investigations. And in the very same article, somebody from the Office of Communications as the university spokesperson was quoted as saying that the university was sure that these charges were going to be shown to be false, which is an extraordinary, either one of those alone is rather extraordinary, but in combination, they are mind-boggling. We have a president who doesn't know about them, yet we have an Office of Communication who's sure they're false.
Right.
And in saying you're sure they're false, first of all, you've chosen one employee over another, but these charges were deemed at least investigatable. They were not dismissed offhand. So
Right.
again, it's this sense of disregard for the appearance of what is right, and I would say disregard for doing the right thing. What do you do? Because I think the answer is what you're doing and what we're trying to do, which is just keep trying to be honest, keep trying to raise this.
We have to keep pushing and talking.
But unlike Ed Ray, we keep getting met with defensiveness and timidity.
So the comments, are these from the new president or the former president? Because you have a new president coming in, correct?
Yeah, he'll start on July 1. So the not knowing about the charges comment is from our interim president. The sure that the charges are false is from a university spokesperson from the Office of Communications.
Because how are we feeling about the new president coming in? Anybody? I haven't met him yet.
Everybody's very hopeful, but that will be July 1. So
July 1.
Yeah.
He's on campus this week.
Well, I saw an article he was going to be at the Capitol yesterday, and I was there. And I attempted to try to find him, but I got caught up in other stuff because I intentionally would like to seek him out and speak to him about these issues because he has to start his presidency setting a precedent like right away. that he's going to come in and he's going to help change this and fix this and hold people accountable. Otherwise, you're just going to restart over a big, huge mess. And so, yeah, if you want to give me an idea of where he's at, I'll go find him. And we'll have a discussion. And we'll, you know, one of the things with Ed Ray is that Ed Ray has been willing to go on record in the media with me, which I've really appreciated, because media can be really good in some ways. Media can help hold others accountable, and Ed Ray has been willing to go on record and say things like, I'm willing to have Brenda on campus. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to help, you know, her agenda and help change this campus. And then the community, the media, myself, we're all able to hold him accountable because he's willing to do that. And I would love for the new president to do the same thing. Like, let's go on record. Let's talk about this. And let's make sure this happens. And let's bridge the gap that we have going on here. There shouldn't be this in-house fighting about this issue. Why? Why? Rape is a crime. Why are we not dealing with it? Go ahead.
I'm wondering, in your conversations with Ed Ray, if, you know, from the get-go, he saw eye to eye with you and was like, wow, yeah, you're right, I need to say this, and this is how I'll handle it publicly? Or was it something that evolved over time that...
You know, at first, when the first apology letter came out in the media, I had not met Ed Ray yet, and I was very skeptical. I thought, well, he's a president. He's the PR guy. He's supposed to make sure everything's okay. He's smart. He went through the Penn State thing. He's getting in front of it. He's real smart. Then he came to Portland with their Title IX director, and they gave me the results of their investigation, which was, 25 hours community service. And I was able to sit across from the table from him and look him in the eye and tell him what I went through and talk to him about how I felt about things, what I wanted to do. And looking him in the eye, I could tell that he felt badly about what happened to me. He did. He wants to make things right for me. And I very bluntly said to him, I want to work with you. I want to make OSU a place that sets a precedent for other schools to follow. But if you're not willing to be that flagship, then I don't want anything to do with you. I'll go somewhere else and I'll find someone else that's willing to step up and be the flagship for the nation, to say, this is how we do things, and partner with me. And he's held to his word the entire time. So I'm really thankful for that, and I'll hold him accountable, and we will continue to do things. And sometimes it's kind of a weird relationship, like, I know you kind of have to talk to me because, it's going to be in the paper. But, it's we joke about it sometimes, but, in all seriousness, he's been really, really great. And I've really appreciated his ability to be honest with me and do the right things, and I will continue to hold him accountable for what he's doing. And we got to do the same thing with the new president here. We just got to lay down the law with him, and we got to talk to him and work on it. He's the president. So,
I have to step in here. I'm sorry. We're just about out of time. I just want to thank everybody for coming, and it's an hour that I'm never going to forget. I think everybody else probably agrees with me there. I'm sure you could probably entertain a few personal questions after.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to be here for a while.
So thanks to you all for coming.
Somebody's making an appointment with me somewhere to meet the president, right? Before I go? Before I go, I'm not going anywhere until we know.
And thank you, Brenda, for showing up. Thank you very much.